Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line. While tears streamed from his mama's eyes, they hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call before it hit the news. No clue what they were about to do. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Finish This Fight Hour at 7 p.m. I know we're normally at 3:30 in the afternoon, but I'm trying something new. I want to see if we can get some folks that are coming off of work and I want to join the Finish This Fight gang, man. Yes, we're a gang. Yes, we are. Ladies and gentlemen, if you joined us last night, you saw a pretty good group of spiritually strong warriors, and we talked about spiritual warfare last night. Tonight, I'm bringing in an actual warrior. This young man and I shared some of the same oxygen about 35 years ago in a place called the Middle East. He's a former fighter pilot. He's got an incredible organization, and he is going across America, reminding people of our history, which is important, y'all. If we don't remember our history, we're doomed to repeat it. So let me bring on my buddy. And the reason I've got my glasses on is because it's not very often I get to be better looking than Mr. Steve Olds. Steve, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here. It's good to be able to hang with you and have a little fun.
Let's have some fun. Now, I'm 5'4" on a good day, and I think you're like 5'16" or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly.
How'd you ever qualify as a fighter pilot? They had to use a dadgum shoehorn to get you in that thing, didn't they?
It's kind of funny. At the time, I don't know whether the numbers have changed, but we had a maximum 39-inch sitting height. So it was your sitting height that got you busted because of the ejection seat. So my sitting height, and somebody whispered in my ear before I went in, and so I slumped down. Oh, yeah, you're 38 and 7/8. Have a nice day. So that's
wow.
That's how it worked.
You know what? Mine was the opposite. I had to kind of stretch at MEP station just to make sure I hit that must be this tall to ride thing,
No doubt. There were a couple of guys that I knew that were, I don't know how they did it, because these were big boys, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", just beefy dudes. And they they met the requirements and they got it done. So it's kind of fun.
Man, we you and I met through a friend in common a couple years ago. I don't even know how long we've known each other, Steve. Doesn't really matter, I guess. But
it's been a while. You've gotten a lot older.
You see this? Look at this. This is.
That's why I shaved tonight, man. So my gray stuff would not be visible.
You know what? God has really got a sense of humor. I found out a couple of years ago. All of a sudden, I was allergic to Just for Men.
Oh, that's funny.
That's not very daggum funny. So now I'm either going to go completely bald on my face and have these jowls hanging out here, or I'm going to have gray. And I choose.
The brother's got options. I mean, it's good to have options.
Well, I choose the gray. So we were introduced by a Marine, and we came to know each other, and we've hung out, and we've done some stuff together. In fact, interviewed you at the Navy SEAL Museum in Vero. It's in Vero, or is it in Fort Pierce?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Fort Pierce, Florida. You didn't make the cut for my movie, though, man.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks very much.
Yeah, you didn't make the cut, but we got some.
Photogenic enough. I got it.
The problem was the daggum camera angles, and I'm going to blame Rocky on that one. He was all
what they told me in Hollywood, man. It's all good. I'll let that go.
He was all squatted down in that Black Hawk and couldn't get a daggum decent angle and hold the camera still at the same time. But so we met some people, met you there, and met some people there, and we've done some cool stuff together. You brought me out to Savannah, Georgia, to do a show, and I appreciated you bringing me out on the day the whole world stopped.
That worked out well. That would have been a fun show, man. We had a whole hangar on a flight line with a bunch of fighters around it, and that was going to be a good day. But at least we chose the only day in the last 50 years for the Savannah airport to get shut down with hail. So that worked out really well.
Yeah, my boys were stranded in Charlotte and Atlanta at the airports, couldn't even get to Savannah. So it was kind of one of those crazy days, but it's just been part of my battle the last few years. Let's talk about some stuff, man. What's going on with our world right now, in your opinion? What do you see?
I think it's pretty simple. It's evil versus good. There's a book that's been written about it. You talked all last night about it. I mean, it's a spiritual battle. I mean, we're in a place right now where we're at a crossroads. I mean, you talk about the crossroads a lot. And the fact is, America's at a crossroads because there have been consistent, decades-long engagements of folks that have an agenda that are not about what our founders were. They're not about what the Pilgrims were about. They're not about our Judeo-Christian heritage. They're not about any of that. They're about control. They're about doing things that are not necessarily in the best interest of families and those of us that actually enjoy freedom. The challenge is that it's much easier to kick back and let somebody give you free stuff. You don't have to work as hard. You don't have to do as much, except that you end up in captivity. That's the only problem with that, either psychologically or obviously in the extreme cases, we're not there yet. But when you have individuals, and it wasn't just last week, it wasn't just tonight with that shooting in Pennsylvania. It wasn't all the things that have happened in recent months, the school shootings and all that. Those are not one-offs. Those are not things that have just happened randomly. It happens when culture begins to crash. And part of the challenge is that when enough people just kick back and enjoy the fruit of what their parents built, we reap what we didn't sow.
Well, that's when it becomes a cycle that's so weird, man. If you think back, how has our society done this? Let me get it up here. This up and down thing. You take the old boomers, man, and I mean the old boomers, even prior to the boomers, the World War II guys that were growing up during that time, that before that went through the Depression, and all they knew was work. They worked hard, man. They rebuilt after the Depression. And that work ethic and that spiritual ethic, they were worshiping God. It wasn't just I'll go to church occasional thing. These folks, for the most part, were God-fearing American people. And that built a country that was strong. But it also built a country that was prosperous. And that prosperity tended to make people more dependent, more lazy, less dependent upon the Father. Because you know what? Why do we need God if everything's going good? I've said this. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Faith is not found in the easy. Faith is not found in the light. It's found in the dark, hard places. And I think we're in and heading towards deeper, a dark, hard place for a little while. And people are going to have an option of what to do then. Do we lay down in despair? Do we lay down and give up? Or do we stand up, pay attention, and say, yes, sir, Father, I hear you. Okay, let's go to work. And Steve, that's what you've done.
Well, it's an interesting discussion because, why is it that we allowed ourselves to be introduced to each other by a Marine? I mean, normally that's not something an Army and an Air Force guy do voluntarily.
I won't make that mistake again, but
yeah, but the reality is there's common ground, And many of us, and many people who are watching tonight, many people who have been following you for a long time, many of the people who have seen Finish the Fight know what the heart of this message really is. And we're kindred spirits. And we're all over the place. That's why we can get along, whether we've known each other for 5 minutes or 5 years or 50 years. It doesn't really matter. So there are people right now that in America are begging to be led. They're looking for leaders, and those leaders are next door. Those leaders are across the street or at work. They're you. They're the people watching. They're the friends of the people who are watching that aren't as far along as we are. We just got a little bit of age and a little less hair and a little gray stuff working. Precisely. So, it is one of those scenarios, but to your point, it's a process. It's called life. It's called engaging people and engaging our young people to understand from whence they've come. Where did we come from? Where did it all start? Why is it that we're different? What makes America exceptional? I mean, all of those kinds of things that are politicized, but yet if you trace them back to the roots, you can find the answer to the questions. And that's, people have to want to get the answer. They got to want to know.
Well, and that's the key. That's the key right there, brother. And part of the reason that I do what I do is because I don't want people to have to go through what I've gone through in order to wake up and take part in this grand experiment called the United States of America. And I don't mean just participate and consume. I mean, be part of the solution. What's it going to take to get folks up off a couch, out from behind a keyboard, and begin to do something in the physical? Is it going to take Charlie Kirk getting assassinated in front of millions and millions of people? Maybe. And I'm not saying God did that. It happened. It was allowed. We have free will, and He allows it to take place. You just told me, and I didn't even know it. I've been out running around today. Three officers were killed and 2 wounded up in Pennsylvania just less than an hour ago. The day Charlie Kirk got shot, a few minutes after that, there were some kids killed in Colorado at a school. It's becoming the norm, not the exception. And it's wild because we have taken and pushed the Father out of our system, out of our society. There is not a Christian moral majority right now. And I hate to tell you this, y'all, that's got to change or we're going to lose.
And the good news is it can change. I mean, the one thing that really came back in a strong way with Charlie's execution was his faith. And you go back and you look at the clips and you look at the interviews and you look and you went, man, this guy had a passion for God. And that's inspiring because there's a lot of folks in our age bracket and another, somewhere between here and where Charlie was that, it's not what we talk about. I mean, we grew up in that environment. At least where I grew up, there wasn't a whole lot of God talk, because that's for the church time. That's in your private living room. That's not out with the people. Well, guess what? There's also a scenario where we're not here to lecture people. We're here to love on them. We're here to lead. We're here to tell stories. We're here to engage people and love them where they are. People don't need to get thumped on the noggin with a Bible. What they have to do is see people living what God says do.
Yeah.
And that's, that's looking in the mirror every day, which is not always the most pleasant experience.
Brother, it's easy for me because I wake up in the morning, my right eye don't work and my left one's crusty. I can't see.
Yeah, there is that. But, it's hard. It's hard doing the things that we're called to do, stepping up day after day and making sure that you're in pursuit of that which He's called you to do. And I'm an expert at this because I've done so many things in my life that were not what He wanted. Sometimes I knew that. Sometimes I didn't know that. But He always, looking back, there was a point where had I been paying attention, I could have seen. There are many times when my own ego was phenomenally developed so that I didn't need anybody's opinion, especially God's
No,
opinion. I know it's hard to believe.
it is hard to imagine.
Yeah. So, but you pay a price for that because, like you said in the beginning, we have free will.
Uh-huh.
And the Lord says, okay, that's what you want. Have at it. Let me know how things turn out. I'll be here.
And he's a gentleman.
He doesn't leave us. So,
No, he's a gentleman. He allows us to go our own way. Now, he's trying to nudge us in the right direction, but he allows us to go our own way. And speaking of nudging, so I was nudged into the Army in 1988. I raised my hand and signed. I didn't go to basic training until January of '89. So I did that thing, and then all of a sudden, November 15th, 1990, I got the call, and off to that sandbox we went. And unbeknownst to me, I'd make a friend many years later. There was probably flying over my head. Maybe could you spit out the window those airplanes when you were flying over?
That's a little tough. It's a one-time good deal if you pop the top on that, and you're going to have a permanent window. But
talk to me about you. What got you in? What got you to join, and how did you choose to fly? And let's talk about that a little bit.
So I grew up outside, about 5 minutes outside the back gate of Andrews Air Force Base, in a little town called Clinton, Maryland. And so I grew up underneath the pattern, watching airplanes from the time I was a little kid. And I always wanted to fly.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a bunch of different pilots. One of the guys that lived around the corner from me he was in the presidential squadron at Andrews. And so I learned all kinds of stories, and I wanted to fly. I wanted to travel. And I actually went to pilot training with the objective to fly heavies. I wanted to fly the big transports and then go to the airlines and go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to pilot training, and then something strange happened, which is that we were in these trainers, and we started doing these low-level flights, at about 450, 500 miles an hour. And suddenly that was actually kind of fun. And I remember my mentor that flew heavy said, fighter pilots, all they do, they don't go anywhere. They just hang out. They just fly on a string. They take off and they come home and do the same thing day after day. Not a lot of fun. It's okay. But I did well enough in my class that actually I was number 4 in my class, which kind of an interesting scenario, because I knew at the end of my pilot training class, I was going to come back as a T-38 instructor. The only problem was that in that particular class drop, there were 4 fighters. The top guy in the class, my buddy Jeff, wanted to fly F-16, so he got that. He got his first choice. The second guy in the class wanted to fly F-16s, Mike Chinberg. He got that, and unfortunately, he died just before Desert Storm kicked off. He was killed in an F-16. My buddy Joe wanted a KC-10, which was the big DC-10 equivalent of tankers, and so that left an F-15. And so I ended up as normally anybody with a brain wants the F-15, but the 3 top guys didn't. So the 4th guy got it, and so I ended up not being the instructor. I ended up with an F-15, and I knew so little about fighters at the time. They were cool looking.
Right.
This was 1988. I graduated college the weekend Top Gun came out. That's right, the first one, May of 1986. And so that was cool. I mean, like, living that life. And back then it was peacetime. Wasn't a whole lot of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
We'd blown up Libya. Okay, that was great when Reagan was taking care of business there. But for the most part, it was Top Gun. It was, a flying club.
Right.
And so I ended up, in an F-15 squadron. Took about 2 years of training, and then kind of like you, one day we were planning a big weekend event in Virginia Beach. We were going to the beach. We had all kinds of plans, all sorts of things that were going on. And I remember walking down the hallway in the fighter squadron, and our intel officer, a guy named Crypto, says, and I asked him, I mean, we're just like passing each other in the hallway. I said, "Are you coming to the beach with us?" He said, "Actually, we may be going to the beach, but not that beach." And I didn't know what he was talking about. Nobody knew at the moment.
Sure.
He had just been briefed. And then shortly after that, he said, Saddam Hussein has 100,000 troops on the border of Kuwait.
Uh-huh. That was August
2nd.
Okay, yeah. I was in my secondary MOS school in, I don't even remember. It was in Arkansas, Camp Robinson, Arkansas. And I remember sitting outside of a barrack, saw TV, saw something flash across, looked like Kuwait being invaded. And the first thing that hit my head is, okay, here we go. Why would I think I would be called up? I don't know. But at that point, I felt like that's what would happen.
It was one of those scenarios that for us, we were what they called at the time the Lightning Squadron. So, and our area of responsibility, our primary responsibility at the time was Southwest Asia.
Uh-huh.
So, if something happened, we would have to be ready to go within, a day or two. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Except they took two of the three squadrons there, 71st, and I was in the 27th, and we put all the jets up. And on the 7th of August, the first squadron, 71st, took off. We took off the next day, 24 jets. Back then there was, nobody knew where we were going. They just knew we were going somewhere because at the Air Force Base, there were every heavy in the world, every C-5 and C-141 was landing there, loading up stuff and taking off. And then 24 jets take off. It's not, fully loaded jets, I might add. So there wasn't much of a secret that we were going somewhere. And it was just, it was a pretty interesting time.
Well, Steve, we're 35 years out of that. 35 years out of that. Don't hear a lot of people talk about Desert Storm. That's not something that we hear much about. And maybe it's great. Maybe it's a good reason, because we absolutely went in and with shock and awe and decimated it. And it was in and out. It was over. I mean, I was deployed a total of 7 months, in country almost for that amount of time. But a lot of that was just sitting out in the desert waiting to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that it's not talked about so much? And what are you doing about it? Because I think you got a mission.
We got a little something working. It's interesting. I hadn't really thought much about it until a friend of ours, Rico Rodriguez, who was he was a fellow F-15 pilot. Rico reached out and we'd done some work together on some of the things that we've done, Glenn, supporting the military and over the last couple of years. And Rico said that the jet that he'd flown in Desert Storm, and Rico, by the way, is one of 4 American fighter pilots since Vietnam with 3 MiG kills. So Rico is a fairly well-known guy in the air-to-air fighter community. And 2 of those MiG kills came in Desert Storm. Well, turns out the F-15C that he flew in Desert Storm was being flown to the National Air and Space Museum, and it would be the first F-15 inducted into the National Air and Space. And he said, hey, they're coming in August, and maybe we could get some folks together and kind of celebrate her arrival. And so we did that. And we thought at the time, this was June-ish, late June. And so we started looking at it. There really wasn't a whole lot of, notice. There wasn't any big ceremony planned. Matter of fact, there was no ceremony planned.
Right.
And we talked to the guys at the Air and Space and said, hey, could we come and bring some guys and celebrate? And they're like, well, that's not really what we do here. You can come. I mean, you can come when it shows up. And we did. And it was just, to us, it was kind of a, nobody has any idea what happened. And Desert Storm was really sandwiched between Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan.
Uh-huh.
2 long wars with incredibly painful consequences and all sorts of geopolitical issues and overtones just all of it. and then the ending of both of those wars, and just all the stuff that we could spend another 2 days talking about.
Right.
But we started looking at Desert Storm and Desert Shield and saying, you know what? This is an example of, I mean, nobody in their right mind wants to go to war. I don't care what they say. Nobody wants to go to war. War is terrible. Matter of fact, we never thought we would actually fight in Desert Storm. We thought, I mean, Saddam Hussein can't possibly be this stupid. He's got, all the allies that were together. We've got all of the firepower. We've had months to practice and get everything going. The idea that he would just go after the 15th of January, yeah, come get me. Well, surprise, surprise. It's exactly what he did. And he paid the price. But when we look at the planning and we look at the hardware and we look at the design and we look at all of the battle plans, the reason that it was so successful is because of what we learned in Vietnam. What we learned in terms of hardware, what we learned in terms of airframes, what we learned in terms of weaponry and tactics. They learned from Korea. We learned and we debriefed well and we figured out how to actually win the Cold War.
Uh-huh.
And what were the Iraqis flying? They were flying Russian jets.
Yeah.
And a lot of Russian tactics. So it was the learning from that experience. And we also had a very specific objective, which was to eject Iraq out of Kuwait.
Yeah. Yeah.
End of discussion. So we had a mission that was clearly defined. We had overwhelming force. Iraq at the time had the fourth largest standing army in the world.
Yeah. And I think it's important to mention, and you just mentioned that with their air power was Russian, but their tank power was Russian too. And we had just really gone through the Cold War at that point, and we're fighting. Well, thankfully we weren't fighting Russia, but we were fighting Russia equipment. And I think one of the biggest reasons we went in there and did so well was, we learned the lessons from Vietnam, but also they actually let Schwarzkopf go do what Schwarzkopf would do and his people. And
that's exactly right.
It was so well planned.
It was not planned in Washington.
No.
It was approved in Washington.
We'd still be there if it was planned in Washington.
Yeah. And you're exactly right, Glenn. That is one of the biggest reasons that we succeeded, is that we had been trained. The bosses got to do what they did. And I can still remember, we had the capability to do what we thought was right with the airplanes in the space and the time where we were. And that went all the way through the chain of command. Uh-huh. So from Colin Powell to General Schwarzkopf to Chuck Horner, the air boss, I mean, all of those things worked, and not everything worked perfectly, but you remember we had new airplanes. We had the stealth, the F-117. First time people knew it even existed was when it left Las Vegas and flew to Langley, Virginia.
Right.
And then we also rushed out of design, and the testing was the F-15E, the Strike Eagle. That was brand new. So we had a bunch of new planes. We had a bunch of all sorts of things, and all the coordination with the air to ground, all the stuff that you guys were doing.
Now, something along that line, and I don't know that I'm 100% right. I think I'm right on this. But wasn't that the first time that we'd ever marked our equipment with something that was able to be seen from the air, so that you would know it was friendly forces?
That may be true. I don't know, because we didn't do the close air support like the A-10s and the F-16s did. But it's completely believable that would happen.
Well, we were to paint an upside down V on all of our equipment, and I'd never asked anybody that flew over the top if that was something that was helpful. But I'm assuming it was, because it wasn't just American equipment. We were there with the Brits, we were there with the Turks, we were there with a lot of other people, and I think that was probably brilliant to keep from having a lot more friendly fire. Probably here, slap my hand. Friendly fire is going to happen in a war. It's not because we want it to. It's because it's going to happen. But I think it cut it down to a very bare minimum, that at least we could be identified from the air.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And there were so many airplanes flying around. That was a big concern of the air campaign planners, because fratricide is, I mean, it's a real factor, and it's especially when you got a lot of folks in a tight airspace. And you remember the first few days, the weather was terrible.
Yeah.
So the weather was awful. The communication was tough. Everybody's got the first day jitters. I mean, because by now there were very few people that had seen combat. Because this was 1991. And
yeah, and we'd been out of Vietnam since what, 73?
73 was the last combat. So yeah, I mean, it'd been there were a handful of guys that had been in combat, but they were young lieutenants or young guys on the ground back then.
Well, brother, I need to break the news to you. When we were there, they were the old guys.
Uh-oh. And that would be us now.
Would be us now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think, though, there are a lot of lessons in there. And it's important to be able to share the success, because there was tyranny on display. I mean, one of the things, and it's a pretty cool story. I went to pilot training, and a couple of the guys I was in flight school with, one was a Saudi pilot and one was a Kuwaiti. And I ended up seeing both of them when I flew to Saudi Arabia. And one of the first memories that I have of getting there, when we first got there in August of 90 during Desert Shield, we stayed in the visiting officers' quarter, and they had this little tea room, had a little TV in it, and you just go in there. And I walked in there one day, and there were a couple guys sitting in there, and I joined them. Well, turns out one of the guys was Little Al. That's what we called him. He was from Kuwait. And he told me the story of his family being executed, and they escaped. He got out with one of the helicopters. He ended up flying choppers. And he said, "Will you please help me get my country back?"
Yeah.
And the personal relationship that I never saw coming. I mean, I never thought I'd see Little Al or Turkey. He was flying F-15s for the Saudis. I never thought I'd see either one of them ever again.
Yeah.
But to hear the stories of what tyranny looks like on display, the evil that the Iraqi army did, Saddam Hussein's army did when they came into Kuwait. So America saw that evil. The fact that there were allies of every flavor that came together, which was really important in that part of the world. That just the Americans that showed up as King Kong. We obviously brought the horses, but everybody played a role.
Yeah.
And that was very important. So you brought the allies together. You had a clearly defined adversary that nobody could debate whether he was really a good guy or a bad guy. He made it very clear he was a bad guy. We had defined objectives. We had a timeline, and we executed an amazing plan that, as you said, the politicians let the generals and the admirals do their thing, and they did it tremendously, and they let us do our thing. So we got the chance to execute like you did on the ground, and we did it on the air, and everybody did in their little space. They got to do what they were trained to do, and we won. The winning part of this is what's got to come out of this lesson. We won because there was a measurable objective that we met, and then we left.
You know what? You're right. But I'm going to tell you from the ground, I had some heart at the time when they issued the ceasefire, because we were so close to being able to just march into Baghdad and just take him down. And it seemed like that was an idiotic move at the time. I still think if the objective was really what we were being told it was an idiotic move, that it should have been done. And then finding out years later, not everything is what we were told that it was.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Well, not anymore, but it was at one point in my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you given that example of the Kuwaiti and his family being murdered, there was absolutely atrocities that took place in Kuwait City. In Kuwait, I saw it myself. I saw people hanging by their arms strapped behind their back, hanging from light poles. I saw that. So there was atrocities, but there was a whole other flip side to a coin that we didn't know about and may still not know the truth about. It hurts my heart, man.
You know, it's one of the things, and I've thought quite a lot about this. there are a lot of geopolitical elements to every war, especially the Middle East. I mean, all of that. So what I think about is, because we had the same debate about, we're right here. We've knocked out all their air power. It wouldn't take much just to roll into Baghdad, take him out, and what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
For the purpose of the discussion that I just shared with you, we ended up doing the mission. We fought it, and then we sort of left, but we didn't really leave, because we had the no-fly zones, and that began everything. Then Khobar Towers happened. Rico's squadron in 1996 was back. They were in Khobar Towers. They lost 19 guys when the terrorists blew up that building.
See, unfortunately, I know Khobar Towers very well. That's the first place I stayed when we came in country.
Mm.
So I know exactly where they hit. And in fact, it was the same building that I stayed in 5 or 6 years before.
Mm.
What a fiasco, man.
Yeah. So there's all those discussions. It became the framework for Northern Watch and Southern Watch and all the other watches that happened, and all of that ultimately led to 9/11. So not necessarily. I don't want to get into all of the different ramifications of who really did what to whom. That's not the point. But we were beginning in Desert Storm. We stayed on a combat footing that really didn't end until the disaster known as the Afghanistan withdrawal. So it's one of those scenarios, but I do think from a battle perspective and from a definition of combat objectives and the allies and all the things that happened, there are some really good lessons out of Desert Storm that we can use to educate people, because part of that was leadership. Part of that was, the general officers and the admirals that knew their job really well and could develop the kind of campaign that could be executed. There were a lot of campaigns and a lot of other wars where guys did not come back because either the campaigns weren't well designed, the people that designed them didn't know what they were doing, or there were alternate drivers behind the battles, which are some of the things that you're referring to. So it's a war sucks. Nobody wants to go in a war. Nobody in their right mind wants to go fight a war. We want to finish a fight that gives us, deterrence, keeps people from doing stupid things. And part of that deterrence is, it's not easy when the bad guy gets a big stick. So, it's a tough place to be.
Well, Steve, I credit my mom and dad and my upbringing to help mold me into who I am today. But I also got to say, I credit the military. I credit the Army into instilling into me the ability to adapt and overcome, to not quit when you're faced against adversaries.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people like you and I that are doing some, I hate to use the word great things. I'm not trying to put myself in a position where, man, I'm doing great things. I'm not trying to mean it like that, but they're doing things to make a difference. A lot of folks that have gone through the scenarios that you and I are talking about. What about you? Do you still see the hand of the Air Force and your fighter pilot training on your life today?
Sure. There's a lot of things that I learned there that, I think about every day. Little things. I think about, in the driving a car and looking at the line of sight rate, going of another vehicle.
Oh man, going into a restaurant and not sitting with my back to the door and yeah.
All those little things. But the bigger issues are the way we live our lives, the operation, the way we react and deal with other people, the way we deal with challenges and circumstances. A lot of people don't know how to handle stress. They don't know how to handle a conflict. But just all those sorts of things. So it certainly had a big impact on me. And like you, I didn't stay in very long. After Desert Storm, The Air Force went through a downsizing like most of the military because of the phenomenal peace dividend, quote unquote, that was declared. So they didn't need all of us, and so went on to pursue other things. But it doesn't leave me. The military service and the oath that we swore, and that really gets back to what your whole mission is driving toward, Glenn. We never resigned our oath.
Nope.
And that's what we're up against now.
Colonel West, when I sat down with him last summer in Dallas, and we asked kind of the same question, and he said some things that were pretty profound. One of the things he said is just because we don't wear the uniform anymore doesn't mean the heart of a warrior is any different. Mm-hmm. We still have that fight inside of us, and we took an oath has no expiration date.
That's right.
We didn't say we would take that oath up to the point where we took the uniform off. It's an oath for life. And I take it very seriously, Steve. Mm-hmm. And I think you do too.
Yeah. And today, given that it's Constitution Day, is a good reminder of why that oath matters. What our Constitution is, why we agree to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. All those elements that most people, I can remember being a dumb young lieutenant. Yeah, I swear. Yeah. Okay, I'm in. I can't wait to get to the fun stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Until you realize what that really means.
Right.
And that, for me, that didn't come till a long time later. To really understand. I knew the basic stuff because back when we were young, we actually got taught American history, and most of it was fairly accurate.
So I didn't even know they weren't teaching American history in schools much anymore either. Wow.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to bother people with our heritage.
See, and that's a whole other rabbit trail that we're getting ready to go down. So we're at about 41 minutes. We're going to have a few minutes left. I want to take a quick break because I want to talk about the initiative that you've got going. I'm going to momentarily talk about the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. And so we'll be back. Let me just show you something. And Steve knows the young man, or has met the young man over the phone that we've been working with. We just got back from New York in July. We took this little turkey with us to New York, and got him into a clinical trial for an exoskeleton. Young Joshua Home hasn't walked in almost 3 years. And guys, within 15 minutes of being in the clinic, this sucker stood up and took his first steps in almost 3 years. In 3 days, 1 hour session each day, he walked over 3,000 steps. I want you to see this. Hang on.
So I had a 60 millimeter mortar that landed 3 feet in front of me. And so it didn't cook off. And so it technically, they would consider it to be a dud, but it wasn't a dud. It had a broken propeller on it. I got pictures of it. I carry with me and stuff. It's about the size of a 1.5 liter bottle. But it has kill radius about 25 meters, 20 to 25 meters. So basically, if that round would have went off, then confirmed dead would have been 20 to 25 meters. Been 31 months since I've been able to stand on even with a brace, or being able to take one single step. So it's been 31 months to the day yesterday.
And then God leaned in and he said, you know what? You're going to do a foundation. You're going to be the one to help these boys, and some girls, I'm sure, get to walking again, back on their feet.
It became so real when we physically came here and I physically got to see face to face to that unit. And knowing that, like I said, it's pretty much like an avatar. I felt like I, plugged in and we became one, like I was breathing with it, it's just incredible. I can't even imagine, I can't even describe the feeling that I have, but it was deep down inside of me. It's you know what, I felt like I can fight again. I really am able to stand again, and I'm like, I can do this.
I guess the sense of pride, to stand tall, no matter what height you are, not a jab at Glenn, but just to stand, just to stand, I think, is huge. We take it for granted.
Well, everybody got short jokes. I'll never know, but y'all, that was it. That's something else right there, man. We
How did you meet Joshua?
he was a mutual friend of some people that I met at I think a Reawaken tour down in Trump around. And I told my story, like, I tend to talk a little bit, Steve. And I tell my story pretty much all the time. I bet I tell my story 2 or 3 times a day on an average, because I want people to know if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. But a while later, they thought they put 2 and 2 together when I told them about doing the show with General Flynn and the exoskeleton and writing the song and that kind of thing. And they introduced me to Josh. And never did I ever think, Steve, honestly, all I thought I was doing was writing a song. I had I had no idea. I was gonna point a light on this other organization that was doing this stuff. And when it came time to shoot that music video last year, I called you and told you we were going. And finding out that organization wasn't helping veterans anymore, I'm like, crap, man. What am I going to do? And then God just whispered, he said, son, you're going to do it yourself, and I'm going to help you. And Joshua came down to help shoot the music video. 3 weeks prior to that, was in the hospital moments away from dying. He had an esophageal tear. 17 out of 21 centimeters of his esophagus was torn open, and he was bleeding internally.
Wow.
And 3 weeks later, he was in Georgia. Couldn't talk. He was writing on a pad, but he was in Georgia helping film the music video. And so when it came down to it, that old Glenn Baker was starting a foundation. Well, dadgum, the first one that's going to walk again is Joshua.
That's awesome.
Golly, we're going to get him on his feet. And brother, I'm going to tell you, man, if I hadn't had to work a camera while we were in that clinic, I would have been a freaking bubbled up snot-nosed mess in the corner watching this young man take his first steps, because he was just smiling and just laughing. And he said it was like walking on a cloud. It was freedom. And so that's why this is so important. Go, if you've got any way that you can, go here to this givesandgo.com/finish this fight. Donate, because we've got $140,000 more that we need to generate over the course of the next few months to pay for this exoskeleton. And it's just one. I actually have a goal of $1.5 million, Steve, by the end of the year, to be able to buy 10 of them. And so we're working on that. If you want something back, instead of just donating, you want something for your money, go to finishthisfight.us and buy a copy of the movie for $10.99. 100% of that goes to help veterans back on their feet. I own the dadgum movie. I paid for it out of my pocket. I can do what I want to with it. So go buy the movie, and I'll use 100% of those proceeds to help our veterans. So enough about me. So Steve, you've got your own initiative. You've been working hard for longer than I have. Let's talk about what you do.
Well, I mean, right now, Patriot Mission, we have a couple of things that we're focused on. One of them, we do our Patriot experiences, which take us to different places around the world to really help people recapture and experience the history in different eras. We go all the way back to when the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth, and to our founding in Lexington and Concord. We've done that a number of times. We've also done things like take a trip to the United Kingdom and into France, and to go to the training zones where our folks prepared for D-Day, and to traverse the English Channel, and to actually go to Normandy and to walk the beaches. And there's something absolutely remarkable that happens, not when you just hear about it or listen to the story, but when you actually walk the hallowed ground, when you walk in the places that men and women not only struggled for survival, but they changed the face of the free world. So we look for unique opportunities where people want to go and experience. They're not always easy to get to. They're not always inexpensive. Well, they're rarely inexpensive. But we can also start, and I would encourage folks, every town in America has a story.
Mm-hmm.
Ask people what they know about their local hometown, where it came from, who discovered it, who started it, just all those kinds of things. There's bits of history. And when you start meeting and greeting folks that have been around the planet a little longer than you have, you start hearing stories, especially when we get to our tender age, you start to look, I know, you start to look a little, look back and realize when your mom and dad said time is going to fly faster than you can even imagine.
Shut your mouth, dude. Oh my God.
So there we go. And but now is the time because we need to inspire these folks, these young people who may be our age, that need to go check out some of this stuff, because you're never too old for it. But yet you can bring young people. Part of our focus is intergenerational. So how do I hang with my kids and grandkid so that they begin to experience things that matter?
You said something very profound right there, Steve, and I'm proud of you. It might be the first time today you said something profound, but you said something about you're never too old. Whether you know this or not, if you follow me for any time, you may or may not know, God called me back into music, and I was 52 years old when I came back to music after being out for 17 years. And you can say, Glenn, why in the crap did you come back and try to think you're going to be a country music singer at 52 years old, even though I'm this sexy, and no, in the natural, that's the dumbest thing in the world I could have ever done. But God's using that to do some pretty cool stuff. I've had a chance to travel the country and sing across the country with some cool people. That's not the highlight. The highlight is what I just showed you, is getting a chance to help these American heroes that have given the best of who they are. Joshua, short of a miracle, will never walk again on his own, Steve. Now, can technology come a long way and change that someday? Yeah. Can God put a hand on him and heal him? Yeah. Is that normally what he does? Not very often. But we can make a difference. And Steve, you're making a difference in a different area than I am. You're bringing veterans underneath an umbrella and getting them involved and active again. Because I'm going to tell you, my friend, a soldier and I don't know about airmen, I don't know how you guys' mentality works, but a soldier without a purpose really kind of gets bored and tired of doing nothing. And I think you're giving a way for us to do that together.
Well, and part of we talked a lot about Desert Storm earlier, and next year is the 35th anniversary of the war itself. And we're using that was kind of to me, it was almost like 35 years, man. That's a long time.
Oh, I know.
35 years. How can we be that old? So, but the truth of the matter is it's a great lesson because it's a door opener. It's a conversation opener with a bunch of folks that are in our age bracket. So we're looking to do some fun stuff to be able to maybe have some events. There's a lot to be learned there because we don't have a lot of time, but the reality is there's a lot of interest in good things right now. People want to hear some happy stories. And the happy story is we came together, we worked together, we put up with Army guys, we did all kinds of cool stuff, and we won. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that means to our kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
And part of the other thing that we're doing is taking those stories and, your voice, for example, God inspired your voice. The reason you came back saying is he said, Glenn, you're going to sing again. And so you said, yes, sir. And you did. And that's awesome. We have a project called Big American Voices that is bringing together 100 men and women with very unique very unique backgrounds that have stories that are largely unknown. Many of us are in the business world, the entrepreneurial world, we've got a nonprofit, we've got a mission, just like with Joshua. Glenn was the very first to raise his hand and say, I'll be a member of this Big American Voices team. It's not inexpensive, but the fact is that we're going to produce a very unique book that is much like the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, where you have some very powerful stories, but these stories are going to connect with each of these individuals. We're going to be doing a number of things together. Many of the different events that we're looking at will bring folks in so we can connect, we can talk, we can help inspire the dreams for the people who have already built successful companies, successful pursuits. Glenn now is in his next pursuit. I want to help Glenn get 10 men and women up on their feet, change their entire life. And that's not going to happen just with a podcast.
Nope.
It's not going to happen. It's what Glenn talked about at the very beginning, right? You got to do something. You got to get off the couch. You got to get into the marketplace. You got to get creative. You got to take some risk. I know you and
Brother, that's a tough thing to say to some people.
Yeah.
We've become a country of complacency and comfort.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, greatness, there has never, ever, ever been anybody that achieved greatness while being comfortable.
No, comfortable doesn't create greatness. Comfort can come from building great things and enjoy the fruit of your labor.
Yeah. There's a time for that.
Yes, there is.
The building period is not the time for it, though.
And what you're describing and the challenges that our nation is facing right now, and I would submit, even for folks that are enjoying the fruit of their careers, and that's great. You've worked hard, you built a company, built a career, built an income, and now you have the chance to enjoy it. It's good to enjoy it. You should. I would also say that the idea of I don't even really comprehend the whole retirement idea. I mean, it doesn't matter how old I am. I've got to be pursuing a dream, just like you talked about the soldier. Soldier's got to have a goal. The goal to sit around and watch TV or do, I mean, whatever. I mean, there's got to be something that drives you. And right now, part of what Glenn and I are doing in our own worlds, but also in a combined world together in these Big American Voices, is pulling people together that want to contribute, that have something important that needs to get out to the world. And I can promise you 100 men and women standing together with passion and vigor can deliver a message that will rock this world.
Is that bigamericanvoices.com? Is that where that is?
Well, Patriot Mission is fine because
that's there. Okay.
Yep. And we have some special opportunities especially for veterans and others that have some interesting challenges, but also those that are supporting our Desert Storm initiative. If any of this strikes a chord, just go there, log on. You can set up a time to have a chat. You can opt in and get some information, and we'll set up a dialogue, and I'll be happy to chat with you about it.
You just recently had an event at Plymouth Rock, isn't that correct?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Talk about that real quick, because I didn't get a chance to go. I've been 99 miles to nothing here in the last year.
Yeah, and you were getting ready to take Josh to
we were going to New York. Yeah,
we're headed up there. So, yeah, we brought a group of our Big American Voices together up there, and we brought together a number of historians, and we walked the places where the Pilgrims landed. We walked to the Forefathers Monument. We began to discover things. I thought I knew something about American history until I went to Plymouth.
Yeah,
Plymouth isn't a place you trip over. You have to actually want to go there. And people joke about Plymouth Rock.
It's not what you think it is.
No, it's not. And it's only a third of the original size, and there's all that. But when you actually meet the people that know the real history, it'll fry your wires. And every time I go back, I've probably been there a dozen times. I'm on the board of the Plymouth Rock Foundation. So they have the biggest private Thanksgiving parade in America.
Wow.
So there's just so much cool stuff to do. We also went and toured Lexington and Concord, where the Shot Heard Around the World happened. And did you know, by the way, that the Americans that got shot at Lexington got shot in the back?
No.
They were turning around to go back to their homes when the British shot them. So there, I mean, I learned more from Dr. Jaley in that trip than I think I've learned in a long, long time. So that's
Steve,
just an example.
why is it so important for us to know this? I mean, let's think about it. I was never a history buff. So I'm following your lead. Why is this so important for us to know it?
Well, it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, when you look at the direction of the country and you ask yourself, what is it that why do our leaders make decisions that they say they make? When they talk about following the Constitution, well, where did that come from?
Right.
Most people don't realize, for example, there's a direct connection from the Mayflower Compact to our founding documents. The Mayflower Compact, most people also don't realize that in the 66-day journey from England to Plymouth Harbor, which was not supposed to, that's not where they were actually headed, but that's where they landed because the weather was terrible. And what happened was about half the people on the boat were not Christians coming to start the new world. They were what was called strangers. They were folks that didn't believe what the Pilgrims believed, but they decided before they got off that boat, because they were off course and they needed a charter. That was what the Mayflower Compact was. And it was an agreement of how we're going to treat each other. And it wasn't we're right and you're wrong. It was they came together, they made an agreement, they lived by that agreement. That Mayflower Compact set the foundation, and that direct line to our founding and all the stories between here and there. There's so much misinformation about the Native Americans and the relationship they had. Some of the best relationships and the longest peace between the Indians and the Pilgrims happened in that first generation. But it was the second and third generations that blew things up. Why? Because they didn't really understand what their parents had done, and they didn't know, or they let it go.
Right.
So why do we need to know this history stuff? Because if we don't know where we came from, we can't possibly lead the next generation.
That's what I wanted to hear, my friend. If you don't know, if we can't remember our history, we're doomed to repeat it. Steve, you and I get together, we get a chance to talk. We could keep going, I'm sure. We could probably put a 2 or 3 hour show together here, but we've gone through our hour. Is there anything final? Any final word you'd like to say before we get out of here?
I would just encourage your viewers to take a little time, not be in a big hurry, and just look at this next year to 2 years of your life. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Who do you want to hang with? What do you want to learn? What do you want to support? Without trying to figure out how you're going to do it.
Yeah, we try to figure it out pretty much or at least I'm one that tries to figure it out. The best work I've ever done is when it was just whisper from God and it didn't make any sense.
It's amazing what happens when you're sitting still and quiet and you listen. And that's part of this, because his voice will come in loud and clear if you turn all the noise off and listen.
Well, Steve, I appreciate your friendship, brother. Hang out for just a second. We'll have a little after action review. For the next week, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be AWOL until next Thursday, and I'm going to have Steve Abramowitz come on board. Steve's in Franklin, Tennessee. He's deeply involved in the movie world, and he's got his own podcast. He's got some cool stuff going on. Is that right? Next week? No, JJ Mazzo next week. And he's another one that's in Southern California. That's just written a book. We're going to have a great time. But in the meantime, I'm going to be in Chicago. I leave Sunday afternoon. I'm going to be in Chicago speaking at a PAC and rubbing elbows and hugging babies and all kind of stuff like that. But I want to see you on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. right here on the Finish This Fight podcast. And just like always, Uncle Glenn loves you. And I'll see you later. I'm out.
Forward, halt, left, 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 right, your left, 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 right.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man. Then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. Kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call